leader chat, and we were talking about that we are people of value who value others, and then we add value to them.
Yeah.
And it's like, so what do we do to add value? And that's, I think, where our shows come in, is that we talk about things that can improve your life. As I love Carol's thing, she always says, we need to spiral up instead of spiraling down. And so many people, especially at this time of year, they're getting caught in the stress of supposedly the best season of the year, and they're getting caught in the stress of it.
Oh, well, yeah. It's the best season of the year for people that have family and aren't stressing about money, and but you can get really caught up, especially if you don't have anybody.
Well, and those are, a lot of it is choices, because,
True. Yep.
And Jason, just so you know, since you haven't been on our show or seen our show, this is kind of like back when the women and some men would, get the kids off to school, and then they sit around the coffee table or the breakfast table and solve each other's problems. And that's kind of what this is. It's just, let's bring some ideas out. But, even for somebody who has no family or has, you know, and yes, not to minimize someone who lost a family member this year or this time of the year, but if you don't have somebody to spend time with, go work in a shelter. I have always wanted to go do, a shelter thing on Thanksgiving or Christmas where they actually do the meals. I do work in a food giveaway place, but it's like a basket of food once a week, that people take home and cook. But to go out and give to others and, just enrich their lives, as opposed to sitting home in the mully grubs. I always say, don't sit home and eat bonbons and watch soap operas and expect your business to grow.
Yeah.
But
well, so like we talked about Thoughtful Thursday, right? So Thoughtful Thursday, and you mentioned Seinfeld, and I was able to start to change my life, and as stupid and silly as this may sound, around a concept that I got from Seinfeld.
Oh, tell us about that.
Are you're a fan of Seinfeld, Carol?
I did. I don't watch much TV, but back in the day, I
like Seinfeld.
What is it? Talk about
the show about nothing.
Show about nothing.
Show about nothing.
That's
show about
us.
nothing, right?
And yet it was about everything.
Exactly.
And yet it was about everything.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so, for me, at this time in my life, I was living in a real victim mindset. And we talk about, you talk about people that lose people, lose family members, and yeah, that's so tough. It's so tough, but we all have had that experience, and we can position and move forward because we can always remember those people. We can create new family traditions where we honor those people or talk about what we're grateful for, or go and give back to others, because when you go and you're in service of others, it's impossible to be depressed, right? Because you're going and you're serving people. But so for me, I was in that victim mindset, and it was poor me, and and I was a victim of my circumstances, and I had an abusive father, and I grew up super poor, and just I kept losing. And I had this hope when I was coming out of high school, but then I just kept losing, and I kept making these wrong decisions, and I kept going down this path, and it was very easy, instead of accepting responsibility, to just blame my abusive dad, who by this time had committed suicide and died, and all these things going on. And thankfully, I met some core key people. I was open and receptive to meet some people that really pushed the needle, and I got introduced to personal development. And I can't really even tell you which came first, the chicken or the egg, as far as this George Costanza, Jerry Seinfeld moment in my life. But it really just clicked, and it was an aha moment. It's when it was a series of episodes where George Costanza had this epiphany of, what if I do the opposite? Because as we all know, George was a lovable loser, right? He's balding. He lives in his parents' basement. He was in and out of jobs. He didn't have any significant other. He was just constantly losing. And so he came into the cafe where they were normally eating, and he was like, sat down, and Elaine and Jerry are sitting at the table, and he's like, Jerry, where did it all go wrong? I had so much potential. I had so much promise. Where did it all go wrong? And he's just kind of lamenting about his loser lifestyle. And he's like, every decision that I've made has been the wrong decision. He's like, every time I've come to this crossroads and I've had a choice to make, I make a choice and it ends up being the wrong decision. And so Jerry said something to the fact of like, well, what if you started doing the opposite? And George was like, ha ha ha, yeah, go do the opposite, right? Go do the opposite. And he's like, well, he was like, if you're telling me that every decision that you currently make is leading to the results that you're getting, what if you did the opposite of your instincts? And so they sat and they kind of like lamented on that for a second. And then George decided he was going to order a different sandwich than what he normally orders, because he orders the same sandwich every time he comes. And he decided, you know what, I'm going to do the opposite. What's the opposite of the normal sandwich that I ordered? And so he ordered this, I can't even remember what it was. He ordered this meal that was the complete opposite of what he would normally order. And when he did that, an attractive lady sitting at the cafe at the bar turned around and looked at him. And Jerry and Elaine said, George, that lady just looked at you. And he's like, oh, yeah, the beautiful lady sitting at the bar looked over at me. He's like, Jerry, what do you want me to do? Do you want to go over to her and say, hi, I'm George, I'm balding, I'm unemployed, and I live in my parents' basement? And Jerry's like, well, he's like, what would you normally do? He's like, well, normally I'd go over there and lie. And he's like, well, what would happen? He's like, it would blow up in my face. And he was like, so? He's like, gets up out of his seat, goes over to her and says, hi, I'm George. I'm unemployed, balding, and I live in my parents' basement. And the lady turns around and goes, well, hello. And it turns out he had ordered the same exact food that she had ordered, and it caught her attention. And they ended up dating. And it just went on this whole streak of George doing the opposite of his natural instinct. And he got a job with the Yankees, and he became ultra successful. And all these amazing things were happening in his life. Like this woman fell in love with him, like all these cool things. And I was sitting there and I'm like, wait a minute. If what I'm doing, the decisions I'm making are creating the results of my life, what if I just started doing the opposite of that? And so I did. I started, instead of sitting and blaming other people, I started really thinking about, and Barbara and I have this conversation. I sat and I blamed my dad for a lot of stuff that was going on in my life. And this guy committed suicide at 43 years old. So I was like 22, 21, 22 years old when he committed suicide. And at the time I said I would only go to my dad's funeral if he, if he died, I'd only go to his funeral just to prove that he was dead, to know that he was actually dead, because I just hated this man so much. But as I'm sitting there and I'm having all these like blaming all my circumstances, blaming this man, I had this realization that what does it matter? What is that getting me? Like I can hate this man. He could have intended to destroy my life. But the thing is even if he did, he's winning. I'm sitting here and I'm blaming this person. I'm destroying my life and I'm just hanging it all on this person who can't even feel it. And even if he could, did he really mean to cause all this damage, or was he just a human that was doing the best that he knew how? And he had a messed up life. And honestly, as I sat and started thinking about it, I realized he was the victim. He was the victim because he grew up with an abusive dad, and he didn't realize that there was anything different. So he got mad, he responded with his emotions, he responded with his anger, and he did that until he realized that he had nothing in life, and he went into a garage and he closed the door and he ran his car until he died. And so how lonely is that? Because not to toot my own horn, but I feel like I'm a person that's impacting people and changing lives. And, I feel like I'm a pretty good person. My brother is a phenomenal person. And we both have raised above our circumstances and reversed the family fortunes and all, sort of like our family's path. And he didn't get to know us. He didn't get to, love us. He didn't get to know my son, who's 14. Just over the weekend, I was at my brother's house because he just had his first baby. And so I'm officially an uncle, and that was super cool. And he didn't get to see any of that stuff. I am not a victim because I get a chance to choose. I get a chance to say, you know what? It doesn't have to be this way. And you know what? When I have a kid, he's never going to, not only is he not going to know abuse, he's not going to know what want is. He's not going to see that kind of physical altercations in the household. He's not going to know what it's like to be broke and to stand in welfare lines. He's not going to know any of that stuff. I get a chance to create something opposite, right? It doesn't matter what I grew up in. I get a chance to change it.
Right. And that's your legacy now to him.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that Keith and I talk about is, especially when we're talking about forgiveness and teaching that concept, is that, unforgiveness is like you're guarding a jail cell and somebody else to make sure this person doesn't get out. But if
Yeah.
they have received forgiveness, they're not even in there, but you're still tied to that jail cell watching it, whether they're there or not.
Yeah.
And so you've
Yep.
got to forgive them because it eats on you,
It
which
eats
is
on you.
basically what you're saying. And that's how it replicates through families, generation after generation. And so kudos to you, and I assume to your brother for breaking that, legacy of abuse and poverty and such. And who knows how many generations back it goes.
Oh, for sure, right? Yeah. How many? Yeah, his dad. What was his family's life like? And I'm sure it goes back so many different generations. And that is what is so, that's one of my major life accomplishments, to look at me and my brother and say, look what we did.
Yeah.
And it may not seem like a huge movement, but it is
Oh,
such
it
a huge
is, because it impacts generations to come. Because how many
movement.
kids is your son going to have, and how many kids is your nephew going to have, and even the people around you and the show that y'all do together, that it impacts. And this story impact. You couldn't have done the show that you do, or this show, or
Right.
whatever, if you
Well, and to tie
hadn't
that back home, and
changed.
just even my son being 14, he just got his first girlfriend, right as school was starting. So at the beginning of September, kind of out of the blue, it's a major life development, right? Because he went from like not liking girls or like not communicating with us and like anybody that he's talking to all of a sudden now, like this girl's at our house almost every day. I mean, she was over, I talked about she was over at our house last night and stuff like that. It's turned out to be, it's unfolded really, really quickly, and he's in this really serious relationship. But it's been so awesome because me and my wife were talking about it last night on the way home. Like, we can say that we did our job because we always wondered, like he acted like he didn't like girls. He wasn't super friendly or like caring or anything like that. And so it's like, is he going to be mean to a girl? Like, how's this going to unfold? And to see him, like, we took a trip up north. It was like a 3 hour trip up north to see the colors, and then we kind of came back down. So it was a whole day trip, and we had him and her in the car, and it's kind of our first extended time together. And in seeing how he opened the doors for her, how he like she laid her head on his shoulder, and he was like caressing her hair. She fell asleep, and he was just like the caring, loving, the things that he would do. I saw myself in that. I saw the things that I do for Gracie. Like, it isn't things that I told him to do. He's just falling in. I had a guy on my podcast that said something, and this is something these are words. This is a writer downer, but like, in times of chaos, we fall back to our trainings. We fall back to our fallback position. In times of heightened, emotions, heightened circumstances, we fall back to our training. And so just to see him, that's just the way he reacts. That's who he is.
Well, and when you say those words, we think of bad chaos, but it's also stressful and chaos. Your first extended day trip with your parents and your girlfriend,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that was a time of chaos. So, the emotions and stuff, I'm sure for him and for her were heightened, not to mention the two of y'all. So,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it ended up being a beautiful trip because, again, is that realization. And to go back to the beginning, wow, okay, now we look at that and it's like, here's even. My dad was back here in the negative, right? In the experiences that I saw, how he treated my mom. Like, when I was about to turn 12, my mom asked me what I want for my birthday. And I said, the only thing I want is for you to find a way to leave my dad. You find a way to leave the house. And she did. That's what she got me for my birthday. She left the house, and we were able to move forward and create a new life. And that's the reason why I'm here today. That was what I asked for when I was my son doesn't know that. I mean, he does. He knows my story, but he doesn't know what that experience is like. And not only that, but his only experience is a man loving a woman, a man caring for a woman, a man, communicating, which is so huge. That me and Gracie are not perfect, but what we've been able to do throughout times and throughout the arguments and throughout all the negative emotions is learn how to communicate with each other to where those things don't happen anymore. And so when you see that as a child, you see that communication versus the unhealthy communication, that's just who you become. It's your fallback position.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Train up a
And
child in the way he should go. And when he's
right.
old,
And
he won't depart.
and I think right now, part of what's happening at this season, well, this happened at Christmas. Oh, this happened at Christmas. Oh, this happened at Christmas time.
Mhm.
And, and things happen all the time of the year.
Yeah.
And yet this time of the year seems to magnify
Exactly.
all the negative things or the stressful things. And then when we add Christmas shopping, we add, the feelings that we should be doing, we should on ourselves. Oh, I should be doing this. I should be doing this. I should be doing this. Well, are you supposed to be doing it? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Make a decision.
It comes down to that
We do so
doing
much
the opposite
because of,
though, right?
pardon?
It comes down to that doing the opposite.
Right.
Because we put all that pressure on ourselves, right? We say
Exactly.
all the we shoulds and we beat ourselves up for all those reasons, or we focus on that problem. I don't have enough money. You stressed over those things. I don't have a family member, right? So you're focusing on all those things. Do the opposite. And I've never had a money problem that's gotten better by focusing on the money problems.
Right.
Right? Like what happens
We've
if I
all
focus
had
on the
money
money
problems.
problem? What happens when I focus on what happens if you have a money problem? What happens when you focus on that money problem? What happens for me is I find more money problems. All of a sudden I get another bill in the mail. All of a sudden somebody calls up and tells me that I owe them money. All of a sudden I see more money going out the window than more money coming in.
But anything you focus on is what is
Anything you
going
focus
to be magnified in your life. And that's where the spiraling up and the spiraling down comes. Is you watch the words of your mouth and you speak the positive and you affirm as opposed to tear down. But whatever, it doesn't matter, if you focus on, oh, I'm gaining weight or I'm losing weight or I'm sick. Oh, what was that little thing I felt in my body? Ooh, what if it could? And then all these thoughts come in of, oh, it might be. Oh, what if? Oh my goodness, it could be something serious. You better go to the hospital and get it checked out. Well, once you go there, they start putting you on all the drugs that just make you physically spiral down because one leads to another, leads to another,
Yeah.
leads to another.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. What you focus on, your mind goes out and finds more of.
Yes.
And
Right.
so whenever I've had a money issue, whenever money has gotten tight, instead of focusing on, oh my God, I have all the money, where's it going? How are we going to get more money? And like freaking out is like having that, letting the emotion subside. And then just literally realizing that money is free flowing in what can I do to find it?
Mhm.
Not how, oh my God, how am I going to find the money? But how can I find the money? What can I do? What is out there? What are my opportunities? What's my possibilities? And it's so crazy because every single time me and my wife have had this discussion, it's like all of a sudden, because my wife has her own business too, and my wife has gotten to the point in her business where she hasn't worked it or she hasn't, put the focus into it that she needs to. And then all of a sudden she's like, oh my God, I need to go get a job. Oh my God, we need money. And oh my God, and then as soon as we have this conversation, it's like, what could you be doing as opposed to going and getting a job? What could you be doing in your business to go and get the money that we need? Right. All of a sudden, her plate's full. All of a sudden, people start reaching out to her. It's so weird. Right. It's like every single time we've ever had this conversation, the next thing I know, within 2 weeks, like she's made more money than if she would have went out and got a job. Like it's just being able to focus in on what can I do? What am I not doing right now that I could be doing?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And just being consistent in what you are inspired to do. Like so often things have come across my plate that have been like, ooh, should I do this? Okay, let's stop and think about it. First of all, let's stop and think about this. And if the inspiration to do it is there, okay, so then let's go forward. Okay, so now that's the first step. So now what else am I going to do? However, on the other side of it, a couple of weeks ago, I called Carol and I said, oh, Carol, I've had a moment. And it was like, well, what happened? I said, well, I was just so frustrated. And I think I said it on the show too. I was so frustrated with doing a thing that I thought I was supposed to be doing. And then all of a sudden it was like, what, because then it goes into the internal thought. Well,
Yeah.
what's wrong? What's wrong with you, Barbara, that you're not getting this? And of course, the thought was, well, are you supposed to be doing it?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
in that moment, I realized that, no, you're not supposed to be doing this. Why are you doing this?
That's so huge. I caught myself in the same situation a few years back. And when I first started my business, I volunteered for this organization. They asked me to be a board member. And so I became a board member because I liked the people. And I was just trying to build my business. I didn't know where my business was going to be. I didn't even know if my business was going to be last the year. But I committed to being a board member because I figured whatever I'm doing, I can carve some time out for this. It ended up, long story short, just being this disaster of something that I didn't really want to do. And it wasn't in like, we're in this spot. I think I could probably, let me know if I'm wrong on this. When we're in the space of personal development, in Barbara, as you're going through that, do you start questioning yourself? Like, why can't I get motivated? Like, I know that I could do this. And then I hate making excuses. I hate making excuses because I know at the end of the day, I have enough time for the things that I have time for, right? The things that I get happy and excited to do, I have time for it. And so every single time my responsibilities were falling under the table or falling off the table or falling off the plate and I had to report back, it was, a matter of like, I don't want to make excuses. Why am I coming up to this wall? Why am I not putting, it's not that I was putting a lot of time and energy into this. I wasn't putting any time and energy into it. Anytime that I saw what I needed to do, I did something else because I had another priority, right? I put something else above that thing. And I started thinking about, it's just not what I need to be doing. It's not. I was beating myself up and I'm like, why am I making excuses? I'm failing. And I'm like, I kept apologizing. And then I just realized I need to not be here. This was not meant for me. I put in my time, but I can't keep making excuses. This isn't a priority for me. And I'm not going to perform the way I need to, or the way I would hope to if I was going to be doing this right. And so I got to admit that.
Right. And take
That's
responsibility for it.
Yes, and that's true. Like even here at Christmas, if you're, what are you called to do? What gifts are you called to give?
Yeah.
We don't have to give a gift to everybody we know. We don't have to give lavish gifts to everybody we know. There may be some people that would prefer just a small little handmade thing that it's something you enjoy doing. Like Barbara likes to crochet.
Yeah.
What if she gave them a pot holder, a crocheted pot holder, instead of a lavish gift that she went out to the mall and fought the crowds to go spend all this money on? You never know. And so that you need to pray about everything you do. You need to be
Yeah.
grateful for what you can do and for what you have been called to do. And if we practice gratitude, and if we practice thankfulness every day, things smooth out, things go better because we're focusing on the good.
Yes.
Thank you
Yes.
that the sun came up. Thank you
Yeah.
that I'm breathing. Thank you that I have a house to live in. And I know some people don't have a house to live in, but be thankful for what you have. If you've got a cardboard box, be thankful for it because you're not just out on a park bench out in the open. I spoke to a lady the other day that's where she is right now in her life because she got out of an abusive situation and she is literally sleeping on a park bench in, I think it was LA, during this transitional time, trying to be guests on podcasts and trying to do different things like that because she's trying to pull herself out. But she'll go sit in a restaurant, use their Wi-Fi, do her stuff. And so,
Wow.
yeah. I mean, there's stuff, and she's grateful. She's not sad because she can look back and realize this is my journey, and that, that's
Right.
her journey.
Right.
So, it's very, very important that we're grateful for even the little things, the
Right.
Even
things
the
we
little
don't
things.
think of are a big thing. But if you're grateful for the little things, the bigger ones will come along.
And
It's
to
so
know that life
huge,
is a
yeah.
process and enjoy the
Mm,
process.
Yes,
yeah.
there's
Enjoy
joy
Well,
the
in
it,
the
process.
journey.
it in for people that are, you think of that lady that's grateful for what she has. She's grateful for her bench that she has, and grateful that she's probably not in the situation that she was in. She's probably in a better situation now than what she was in. She's grateful for that.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
you encounter people every day that have shelter, that have food, that have abundance, that walk through life, that are just living day by day. Just last week I was at the bank and I met this young man. Or I know who he is. I see him in the bank every time I'm in there. Super good guy. But every time I ask him how he's doing, he's like, living the dream. Have you ever met those people living the dream? Like it's that sarcastic. They're not really living the dream. They're just
Right.
like living the dream. Or this is the most common one when you ask people how they're doing and they're like, not too bad. Like, what do you mean not too bad? Like, was yesterday you were chewing glass, like you had like
Right.
you're bleeding out of your ears, and then today that it's not too bad. Like, what does
Yes,
that mean? Like,
exactly.
watch what you're saying. What are you saying to people? And so
Yes.
when
Yes.
I've heard this guy say this to me so many times, and so last week I had a few minutes, and so he asked me how I was doing. I'm like, I am absolutely living the dream, and he was like, do I hear sarcasm there? And I was like, absolutely not. In fact, it's one of my biggest pet peeves when people say living the dream and they're so sarcastic about it because like you're just announcing to everybody that you're completely miserable in your life. Why? Are you completely miserable in your life? And he was like, no. And I'm like, so why is it a sarcastic every time somebody asks you what's going on? Why is it always like a living the dream? I'm like, for me, I'm living the dream because I'm living the life that I choose. I get to wake up and do what I choose every single day, whether that's I get to go to work and have a job that it will pay my bills. You're a young man. I get to learn things that will help me propel my career because maybe you don't like this job, but you know what? I had plenty of jobs I didn't like when I was your age, and all of those jobs combined to the experience that I have today that allow me to do what I'm doing today. And so if you look at life like that, be a little bit grateful. And, people there, I didn't get into it too far, but I said, when I go out and I say, and it's literally one of my life's missions to make living the dream a good thing, right? When people ask me how I'm doing, I'm like, I am absolutely living the dream. And it's so different than living the dream. I am absolutely living the dream. And I say it with a different energy and a different voice. How are you doing? I'm phenomenal. I'm fantastic. I'm
I'm
amazing.
amazing.
I'm amazing.
I'm
Things are
awesome.
going so well.
Yeah.
If I'm having a bad day, I'm like, it is unbelievable. Today is unbelievable. But when I say that stuff, guess what happens? People perk up. Wow, really? What's going on?
Mhm.
Oh my
Well,
God, I'm
because
going
they're
on. I'm
so
having,
used to the negative. We have been
yeah,
conditioned to the negative in our lives.
negative,
Yeah.
right? And so when somebody says, "Oh my God, what's going on?" Well, I'm about to go on a podcast with these two amazing ladies, and I'm about to share my story, and like we're gonna talk, and we're gonna do a Thankful Thursday episode, and like, what? Really? You get on podcasts?
Yeah.
How do you do that? And like, it starts a whole entire
That's
conversation. You
Yes.
become memorable. It's like a pebble in the pond. You make that ripple impact, right? Like,
right.
and so when I walk into my bank, this is not just from last week. When I walk into my bank, it's literally I have to be in the right mood to walk into my bank. I can't have a bad day. I can't be in a bad mood because when I walk into my bank, they have a wrestler style announcement they make when I walk in. They're like, Jason, Tracey, and like they make this whole thing, right? It's because every single time I come in there, I'm giving back to their energy.
Yes.
It's not by accident that I'm saying I'm phenomenal, I'm amazing, I'm great. Even I have a bad day, I have bad times, I have bad circumstances, but you know
Exactly.
what? It's the everyday riches. It's the finding the things that I know I can be happy and thankful and grateful for. And guess what? More of those things pop up in my life.
Yes. Exactly.
Because a lot of those times when I'm telling those people, they tell me something that I can go do, or they tell me about an opportunity, or they think about me the next time I come in. They're like, oh my God, I heard about this thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well,
Jason, how can people get in touch with you? We're going to run out of time
that's
here.
what I was fixing to say.
All right. So I am on LinkedIn, which is where Barbara and I met. So you can find me just Jason Tracey on LinkedIn. You can find me, my website is www.roar.consulting. And also I have my YouTube page that is Roar Nation, and that's where my podcast Coffee and Grit is at. And I'm at Everyday Riches. You can find me there. You can find me anywhere. You used to be able to Google Jason Tracey, you'd find the producer for Burn Notice. Now, if you Google my name, I'm competing with the guy that produces Burn Notice and a bunch of other TV shows. So I feel pretty excited about that.
Well, and you can always put chats down in the show notes and stuff for him. He'll reach out to you if you reach out to him.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely like, share, tell your friends about our Thoughtful Thursdays, and watch the words of your mouth, watch the thoughts of your brain, because they matter. And that, where you focus is where you'll go. So we'll see y'all. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
ladies.